Hey, you guys, welcome for our first official meeting for the year. I hope everyone had a good time during the holidays with families and friends. Um, Welcome all the public members for tonight's meeting too, as well. We're gonna jump right into it. We're gonna start. I'm gonna ask Lieutenant Albali to start with the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Tokalahi. Member Alm,
Present.
Member Kamina, Member Nguyen, Member Ruiz, Alternate Member Valdez, Member Alvarez,
Present.
Chair Tokalahi,
Present.
and Vice Chair Davidi.
Present.
And alternate Member Locks is absent as of now.
Thank you.
If you want, I could go over the interpretation or the online instructions.
Yes, I was just gonna ask, just to make sure that we got those set up. We good to
Yes.
go?
We are all good to go today. So thank you, Chair Tokalahi. Before we begin, we'd like to announce that tonight's meeting will include Spanish language simultaneous and consecutive interpretation provided by qualified interpreters on the Spanish channel. If you're watching on Zoom, you can join the Spanish channel by clicking on the interpretation icon in the Zoom toolbar. It looks like a globe. If you're attending in person and you don't have access to the Zoom meeting from your mobile device, please come and see me and I will set you up with a device so you can listen to the meeting in Spanish. As a reminder, we ask everyone participating tonight to speak slowly and to allow our interpreter to effectively express your comments. Additionally, if there is anyone attending tonight who requires a listening device, the city does provide hearing impaired devices which are available at all public meetings. Please let myself or any city staff member know and we will provide one to you. Closed captioning is also available via Zoom. You can select live closed captioning on the Zoom by selecting the quote show captions quote unquote, which has a box in letters CC. This is located on the Zoom toolbar options at the bottom of the Zoom screen.
Antes de comenzar, nos gustaría anunciar que la reunión de esta noche incluirá interpretación simultánea y consecutiva en español proporcionada por intérpretes calificados en el canal en español. Si está mirando en Zoom, puede unirse al canal en español haciendo clic en el icono de interpretación en la barra de herramientas de Zoom. Aparece como un globo terráqueo. Si asiste en persona y no tiene acceso a la reunión de Zoom desde su dispositivo móvil, venga a verme y le configuraré un dispositivo para que pueda escuchar la reunión. Como recordatorio, les pedimos a todos los participantes de esta noche que hablen lentamente para permitir que nuestro intérprete exprese sus comentarios de manera efectiva.
This meeting tonight is being recorded and members of the public watching online or listening by phone can watch or listen by phone by calling 669-444-9171 using the meeting ID 898-5264-7245#. There will also be an opportunity for public comment for those participating in person. Each person will have 2 minutes to provide their comments, and we invite each of you to introduce yourselves by name before presenting your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Does everyone get the copy of the minutes from our last one, which is November 20th of last year, and also our special meeting just last Saturday? Yeah.
December 4th.
You all got it, right? Okay. So,
Chair Tokalahi, just to
yes.
clarify, it's the special meeting that we had in December. The special meeting that we had last Saturday will provide those minutes for approval in the February meeting.
On the next one.
Yes.
Okay. So we're only looking at approving the November 20th and December 4th. Oh, okay.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Any seconds? Second that. Minutes approved. So at this time, I'm gonna ask, if there's any questions from the committee members regarding the minutes. No. Or, sorry, the agenda. The agenda for today. We passed the minutes.
No, we are still on the minutes. And then after, if there's no questions, I would suggest maybe invite if there's any public comment.
Got it. As you can see, we're still learning. We're getting it together, right? Okay, so, yes. So we're gonna go questions from the committee regarding the minutes, those 2 minutes. We'll start with, any other questions? Any questions? No? What about, any comments from the public regarding those 2 minutes? No? I'm going to close public comments. So I'm going to request a motion in a second approving the minutes. In
Sorry,
that-
Chair, I jumped ahead. I will now make my motion to approve.
Sorry. Motion to approve, second,
I would be
Now
happy
we-
to,
officially approve those 2 minutes.
I would be happy to call a roll call for the vote.
Yes, please.
Member Alm,
Approve.
Member Alvarez,
Approved.
Vice Chair DeViti,
Approved.
Member Nguyen,
Approved.
Member Ruiz, Chair Tokalahi,
Approved.
and Member Kamina. The motion passes.
Thank you. At this time, I'm gonna call on the public expressions, open time for public comments, to address the committee at this time on matters which are not on the agenda for today. Jason, how's it going, Jason?
Gerstle Park. I want to get this on public record. It was a quote from the Pacific Sun in regards to the Brandon Nail situation in the Pacific Sun by Nikki Silverstein, who reported on the arbitration hearing. This is from Theo Evanson, the civil rights attorney from Mr. Jimenez. In what other industry would an employee who is facing criminal felony assault charges and who was fired from their job by their supervisor, based on these findings, their conduct violated department rules and protocols and brought the shame to the department, have a right to request a private and confidential arbitration conducted in a star chamber by a single non-court appointed arbitrator to challenge their supervisor's decision to fire them, Emerson said. Only police enjoy these excessive rights and privileges. These officers must feel untouchable and above the law. The community of San Rafael is not safer or better with Officer Nail back on the streets. And, you know, this whole situation, this whole event is exactly why you are all here today. And I believe you all have an obligation to the public to help ensure this never happens again. And so use your power, use your work on this. Try to find a way to make sure this never happens again. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Good evening, PAC members. I wanted to highlight a couple of things that happened in the meeting on Saturday. I wanted to remind you that Chief Spiller addressed you all and said, you're right. We at the police department, we do think we do things right. That's why you're here, to bring the community perspective, to tell us what it is that we're doing that works and what doesn't work, so that we can have a better partnership with the community that we have sworn to serve. So I hope you all, I really appreciated when the chief said that, and I hope you all took that to heart around bringing that community voice back to these meetings, about talking to your neighbors and figuring out what people really want and how they define safety, so that we can share that with the police department. I think what Jason just shared is really important about the transparency and secret keeping. I want to thank you all for getting transparency on the agenda for next year, for this 2025. And just kind of to highlight that Paula Camina said, well, I want to understand more about the policy for releasing this kind of information. To me, that's part of transparency. So when the press release came out, he was reinstated on the 16th. They found out on the 21st. We didn't find out until weeks later when the press started answering questions. So please keep that in mind. And I also want to talk about the ridiculousness of addressing you all and saying, if you want to change your bylaws or change your name, go give public comment at the city council meeting. It's ridiculous. At the same time, you have before you tonight a report to the city council that is going to be provided that says they are your recommendations. So why can't you recommend in a report to the city council, not 2 minutes of public speaking, changes to the bylaws and changes to your name? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? No? I'm going to close public comments regarding items that are not on the agenda. So next on our agenda, we're going to move on. We have folks to do presentation for us tonight. So we have Jimmy, Lynn, and we also have Joanna. I got all your names right. My apology. I'll stay away from the last name because some of the last name I don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to give you guys the floor for your presentation. You can reintroduce yourself, and then yeah, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lynn. I am a junior engineer here at the city. The project that we will be presenting to you all today focuses on lowering some speed limits in downtown San Rafael. We're looking for some opportunities to lower the speed limits since passing AB 43. We aim to do this through updating our engineering and traffic survey, which we're in the middle of the cycle to update. While we do this work, we've been doing some outreach, which is why we're here in front of you tonight. We've also been to BPAC, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. We've engaged with our transit systems, Marin Transit and Golden Gate Transit, as well as created an online community input form, which we'll also share with you tonight. With that, I'll pass it on to our consultant, Jimmy, to go into some of the details.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. And good evening, Chair Tokalahi, committee members, Jimmy Jessup. I'm an engineer with Parametrics. We provide transportation services in partnership with the city of San Rafael. Pleased to present to you tonight on the AB 43 strategy and our proposed downtown speed limits. As part of this presentation, I will give a brief overview on how speed limits are established in cities across California. And then we'll talk about the details of an evaluation that we have performed in conformance with Assembly Bill 43, which is new, effective in California as of last year. Just a brief word on our firm, Parametrics. We provide a wide range of transportation services and speed surveys, engineering traffic surveys, which go into this line of work regarding speed limits is one of our core competencies. You can see an example from nearby Mill Valley. We perform the engineering and traffic services for about 10 jurisdictions within Marin. So a little bit about speed limits. It's a fascinating topic, something we all know a little bit about. I'd like to allow us to understand where speed limits come from and how they're established. In general, in California, the California Vehicle Code establishes statutory speed limits. That is either a maximum or a general face speed limit called prima facie speed limit on residential, on business streets. All other streets in our cities are established by what we call an engineering and traffic survey. So this is an engineering study that takes into account prevailing traffic speeds on a roadway, other roadway characteristics, and traffic history. The engineering and traffic survey is required to be conducted on streets in California every 7 years. The way that surveys are constructed allows, as per the California Vehicle Code, to be enforceable by radar speed enforcement. So as part of this work, we always work carefully with local police departments in order to ensure that speed surveys and resulting speed limits are in accordance with the California Vehicle Code. And in general, the way to understand an engineering traffic survey is from taking speed surveys by radar of a sample of vehicles on a roadway. We establish what's called the critical speed, the 85th percentile speed. And this is the speed at which 85% of all vehicles travel at or below. I'll explain a little bit about how we can think about 85th percentile speeds. Here we have an example speed survey collection results presented in a histogram of speeds between 16 and 32 miles an hour. So on this hypothetical roadway, we would have taken, say, 200 speed survey results from vehicles on the roadway. And you can kind of see the body of vehicles seem to travel within around 25 mile an hour average. The way that we think about 85th percentile is, again, that which encompasses 85% of all vehicle speeds. So on a roadway where we might imagine average speeds being around 25 miles an hour, in actuality, as per California law, this roadway would be established as a 30 mile an hour roadway. And it might seem counterintuitive, but in actuality, the idea is to not have too many vehicles traveling over or under the body of what drivers have considered to be reasonable and prudent. So this is the way the California Vehicle Code has been set up for many years. However, unfortunately, what it often leads to is a driver mindset in which motorists tend to go maybe 5 miles an hour above the speed limit, which then, as we just saw from the previous slide, requires establishment of a speed limit at that upper range of vehicle speeds. And then vehicles tend to travel over that speed limit again, and it leads to this cycle of speed limit increases over time. And this is a phenomenon that's been well documented both in the media and in the transportation field. And this has also been one of the reasons why transportation professionals have agreed on a need to rethink how speed limits are established. In essence, for 75 years, speed limits and police enforcement of speed limits have reflected a driver comfort level with roadways, not necessarily what's safe or a speed limit that had been intended by the jurisdiction when roads were originally built. I also like to give a quick note on the relationship between vehicle speeds and outcomes in the event of crashes when pedestrians are involved in a crash. At 20 miles an hour, there's a 90% of that pedestrian surviving the crash. However, at 40 miles an hour, there's only a 20% chance of a pedestrian surviving a crash with a vehicle. So we can see this very crucial inflection point between 20 miles an hour and 40 miles an hour in terms of safety outcomes. And this is one reason why we tend to take great care in establishing speed limits, especially with respect to recent statistics that have shown the results of crashes in the state of California increasing in terms of pedestrian fatalities, as well as in terms of all fatalities overall. So I give a lot of this background to lead into Assembly Bill 43, and effective January in 2022, as well as other provisions from last year, Assembly Bill 43 is meant to address what we see in the increasing speed limit, this speed creep cycle, as well as these negative safety outcomes from our roadways. And the basis of Assembly Bill 43 is that it does take quite a step change in the way that we think about speed limits in California. For the first time, engineering and traffic surveys are now required to take into account the presence of vulnerable road users when establishing speed limits. So this includes the way that pedestrians such as seniors, children, persons with disabilities, and the unhoused interact with the street, and taking their safety outcomes in mind when we establish speed limits. AB 43 doesn't just change the way we think about speed limits, but it also gives additional levers for local jurisdictions to determine the established speed limit within their cities. As you may recall, previously, the results of the engineering and traffic survey basically established the speed limit, and local jurisdictions did not have a say in those speed limits. AB 43 is quite momentous in the case that now cities such as San Rafael have the ability to think about what speed limit actually is appropriate for their own local streets. There's been quite a bit of movement on AB 43 in the recent 3 years. You see just an example of cities across the Bay that have implemented one of the many provisions of AB 43 in the different ways that local jurisdictions do now have a say over speed limits on their roadways. And tonight we're going to talk about downtown San Rafael and present results of an evaluation that recommends establishing 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in the city for the first time. I put a couple of visuals on this slide, but really the intent to show tonight is that there is a substantive difference between 25 and 20 miles an hour, both in terms of injury outcomes and safety outcomes, as discussed earlier, but also in case studies from cities across the United States and internationally. Not just crash statistics have improved, but also average speeds have improved. It's been reported that noise levels have decreased as a result of lowered vehicle speeds, and general livability measures have shown to be favorable. Part of this timeline, and to give an overview of where we are in the project, we've spent the summer and fall of last year reviewing the roadways within downtown San Rafael, performing speed studies, going through an evaluation of all the roadway segments in the context of AB 43's multiple provisions. In the fall, we've engaged other members of city staff, the police department, the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. We're also coming to PAC here tonight to collect input. And the plan is to then implement signage, striping, communications, and other elements of reduced speed limits in downtown San Rafael over the spring and summer of this year. I will talk a little bit about our evaluation and how we conducted it. We wanted to ensure that we were building on a foundation of planning studies in San Rafael, specifically downtown San Rafael, that aligned with the work that we're performing, including the Bicycle Pedestrian Master Plan, the Downtown Precise Plan, and the Local Roadway Safety Plan that was adopted by Council last year. Just to highlight some of the activities involved with the latter of those three, Here's some screenshots from the local road safety plan. That document did discern that unsafe speed is the leading cause of all crashes in San Rafael. San Rafael's high collision network is identified, you can see on the screen here, and that high collision network centers most acutely on the downtown area. And one of the recommendations from that study was to consider lowering speed limits in compliance with AB 43. So the city is taking the next steps that had been recommended from the local road safety plan last year. So how did we as a project team go about evaluating downtown roadways? We took speed surveys, as is our current or common practice with an engineering and traffic survey study. And then we very meticulously looked at each roadway segment singularly and individually against a number of provisions in AB 43. There's provisions for establishing a business activity district. There's provisions for looking at crash history and identifying safety corridors, which would allow roadways to be eligible for a further reduction in speed limit. We looked at land use, roadway context, the ability of land uses to generate high volumes of pedestrians and bicyclists, those that would be vulnerable roadway users. We looked at senior centers, which within the downtown area. And then we also evaluated against previous, current, and upcoming infrastructure projects in downtown. Okay, so a lot of talking. This is kind of the fun slide to look at. The results of our evaluation result in this draft, well, I'll call it a 20-mile-an-hour zone in downtown. You'll see that not all downtown roadways are proposed to be posted at 20 miles an hour. Second and third, in particular, would retain their current 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. This is to allow for the usage of their vehicular traffic and the core movements that they do serve. Currently, 2nd Street between Shaver and where it connects with 4th is signed at 35 miles an hour. We are recommending for that segment to be reduced to 30 miles an hour. And then the other roadways within downtown would be posted at 20 miles an hour. There's also some gray segments that are That concludes the evaluation of our study against AB 43 provisions. As mentioned tonight, we're continuing to collect input. In fact, this map has been adjusted based on previous input we've received from the public. So at the conclusion of our input gathering, we do look to take this work to City Council. An ordinance is required to establish reduced speed limits as per AB 43. And after that next step in the spring and summer, we hope to inform, educate the public, install appropriate signage and striping, implement a 30-day trial period for the new speed limits, and ongoing evaluate for effectiveness in terms of reduced vehicle speeds as a near-term metric and improved safety outcomes as a long-term metric. Just a few closing thoughts for us. As mentioned, there is a growing body of research that shows that speed limit reductions are effective. Speed limit reductions themselves in a vacuum are not what the city is considering the end goal. In implementing infrastructure improvements, targeted enforcement, education, all comprise a comprehensive approach, but speed limit reductions is a key aspect of improving safety outcomes. And then also reduced speeds improve more than just safety. It also allows for public health improvements such as reduced noise level and overall livability and ability to enjoy the vibrant area that is San Rafael's downtown. So there's a number of benefits that we see that go along with this work. We do have a website. This website has been live for a couple of months now. We are collecting input via an online input form, and we are just now at the point where collecting public feedback, of course. We'd like to be able to share this draft map of the city as part of the progression towards presenting.
Thank you, Jimmy.
We don't know why, as you can see, we haven't touched anything and has a mind of its own. Give us 5 seconds here. Translator, I just want to test if you can just, Member Ruiz, do you hear anything over the, it is working? Okay. We are good to go.
Thank you, Jimmy. I want to come back to the committee to see if there's any member have any questions regarding the presentation.
In general, across the nation, across the state, safety outcomes have been worsening over the
Right.
past 10 years. And I know our conclusions from the local road safety plan do show that San Rafael in general consistently has had the highest crash rates and number of crashes for any jurisdiction within Marin County.
I would be curious because I'm sure there's a lot of time and money being invested for this project. It'd be nice to have a pre-post comparison. Like, you know, what are the data specifically to that specific location? Like, what are the accident rates now, and then post you putting the speed limit down? Because obviously safety is very important. And I know a lot of people, every time you say speed limit, they say traffic. If people are going slower, you know, priority is obviously safety. But I know the number one thing in the downtown area people complain about is traffic a lot as well. So I'm not sure how does that impact that as too. So with the speed limit being lower. The other thing is, I'm just more curious about having more stats in the area, demographics for, you know, as far as being impacted and how we can educate public and the drivers. Also with self-driving cars, I know like I have a car that's self-driving. When I go on self-driving mode, it just like definitely follows the speed limit. So I'm not sure with the future of technology, self-driving cars and stuff. It's also another way I think to improve safety, you know. Anyway, I think my main feedback to you guys would be to bring more stats as far as how is that specific area you're targeting is looking now versus after the speed limit's lowered.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Anybody else have questions? Member Elm?
Thank you very much for that presentation. I had submitted a few questions before, and thank you for answering them. But I'm still a little bit thrown, and my understanding is California Civil Vehicle Code is the overarching rule, and future environmental and traffic studies could, in theory, re-up a speed limit we reduced through AB 43. Is this correct?
In theory, that is correct. I would like to highlight one provision, one of my favorite provisions of Assembly Bill 43. And that is intended to address specifically this phenomenon of speed creep. One of the provisions allows for, regardless of the results of a future engineering and traffic survey, a local jurisdiction can always elect to retain a currently adopted speed limit or revert back to a previously adopted speed limit if that speed creep phenomena was in its near past. So based on that provision itself, a speed limit never has to increase in the future. It is now within the decision-making capability of a local jurisdiction to decide what speed limit is most appropriate. I hope
Thank-
that answers the question.
It does. It seemed like problematic to me that we're going to go through this effort, spend a lot of money studying, and then we have to go through our mandatory study again after another 7 years, and speed creep happens. I guess that would be an enforcement issue if that happened. Another question. I have a lot of concerns about 2nd and 3rd Street not being included. It seems to be our hot zones. My experience with working at Marin Health, like 3rd and B Street is a high pedestrian versus vehicle area. What is the logic behind not readdressing 2nd and 3rd Street?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. There's 2 reasons for that. We looked at AB 43's ability, and it doesn't give cities carte blanche ability to establish speed limits. Based on the provisions in AB 43, 2nd and 3rd did not meet those provisions for reduction in speed limit. And there's a number of different reasons for that, but the concentration of commercial land uses is lower on 2nd and 3rd Street than in the rest of downtown. And the existing traveled speeds on 2nd and 3rd are higher than the rest of downtown. And, you know, in kind of a ironic way that speed limits have always been established closest to the prevailing traveled speed, the city now has additional levers to reduce that speed limit, but the existing traveled speed wasn't close enough to the range to allow the city to reduce to 20 miles an hour, if that makes sense.
No. There's a lot of businesses on 2nd and 3rd Street. Was this study done prior to Vivalon being completed, a senior housing facility? I'm still don't get the logic. From my reading and understanding of AB 43 on what would qualify as streets that would meet, it seems to me 2nd and 3rd Street would definitely fit that bill.
It definitely meets the definition of allowing for an additional 5 mile an hour reduction in speed limit, but based on the prevailing 85th percentile, if we were to reduce by an additional 5 mile an hour, we would get down to the existing 25 miles an hour. So for 2nd and 3rd, they're limited by how much we can reduce the speed limit from the existing measured 85th percentile. And you know, the way that cities think about this is, okay, installing infrastructure improvement and enforcement of the existing speed limit hopefully can reduce prevailing speeds to a level that then will be within the range of ability to establish a 20 mile an hour speed limit. But the prevailing speeds currently were measured too high to be able to do that now.
Disappointing, bummer. Third and last question. What is the timeline for other areas of San Rafael outside of downtown to get those addressed?
Oh, thanks for asking.
Does AB 43 require to go outside the downtown area, which includes his questions, or does it just focus on downtown area?
The city has decided to start with downtown based on existing crash metrics. As we see, the high collision network really centers on downtown. And then also, one of the AB 43 provisions establishes a definition of a business activity district. For instance, 4th Street meets that definition, which really has quite a number of aspects that a roadway must display, and 4th Street does, and a few others in downtown. And so that's taking advantage of that provision is one of the reasons why we started in downtown as well. The city certainly wants to implement this project and start measuring its effectiveness. As we go beyond the summer, then the plan certainly does include extending the evaluation to other roadways in San Rafael. And the details around timeline for that, I don't know necessarily, but Lynn or Joanna might be able to comment on that.
Good evening. I'm Joanna, Assistant Public Works Director of San Rafael. I think, as Doreen mentioned, we're looking at focusing on downtown because of all the targets that it kind of hits, and it being a more densely populated area. And I think after we're going to put in place like a monitoring plan. We have the data from before, and then it's going to take us time to implement all the striping, signage changes, and following that, we have the 30-day monitoring period. We're going to see like how effective it is, and there's likely going to be more public outreach after that, so that we can also collect community feedback before we apply to other roadways. But we are planning to do it shortly after we're able to collect data on how effective the application of AB 43 is.
Do we have any vision of areas that we think we want to address at
Yeah.
this point?
Yeah, I believe the next areas that we're also looking into is near schools. And I don't remember if you can expand on that, Jimmy.
Yeah, essentially, we want to take a survey of all arterial roadways and then those that are close to schools, community centers, parks, and other, even local streets that might benefit from speed limit reductions citywide. So after downtown, I think we're just going to go citywide.
Thank you. That's all.
Just going to follow up with some of these questions. The AB 43 implementation, is this the first one? Have you guys carry these out throughout California and other cities, or this is just the first trial?
Great question. I showed a quick blurb of news articles from all over the Bay Area, all over the state in the transportation field. This is always making news. At Parametrics specifically, we've reduced speed limits on 8 roadways in Lafayette. Corte Madera was in the news just last month. We reduced speed limits on 9 of their roadways. We've done the same in San Anselmo, a few other jurisdictions in Marin. So San Rafael is the first time that we've kind of looked at a whole zone. And so it's an exciting bit of work, but you're not the first city in California to have undertaken this.
Okay. So I want to follow up on that too. You said you guys have done this in San Anselmo, right? How is I'm worried about because right now, currently the traffic in San Rafael getting in and getting out, it's crazy in the morning and probably after work. We're rebuilding the mall. It's going to come. Lincoln is leading to that way. Lincoln is crazy, rush hour. Some of these streets, we have schools outside of the city, but they have school buses that pick up a lot of kids from downtown and close by areas. We have Smart Train. We have the main bus hub downtown. How are these implementation impact the current traffic movement? Reducing the speed, is it going to help? It's not my expert. I'm just asking.
It's a fantastic question, and I'm very glad that both of you have asked this tonight. Part of the really exciting aspects of this work is especially in urban areas, published literature time and time again demonstrates that travel time from point A to point B is very slightly correlated with speed limit or travel speed. Travel time is almost entirely due, especially in urban areas, to the time delay of vehicles at intersections. So when we think about our ability to travel through downtown San Rafael or to cross 101 or any route that you typically travel on, it makes sense. We can think about what increases the time to travel from point A to point B is the time waiting at stoplights. It's the time waiting for the signals to change phase so that your specific movement can proceed. And the speed at which you're traveling between intersection to the next intersection actually really doesn't matter at all. And it's something that, you know, we like to feel like we go fast, we get somewhere faster. But if we all stop to think about our lived experience, it does start to make sense that intersections are the primary source of travel delay from point A to point B. So because of that, reducing speed limits is part of the work that the rationale behind AB 43 is that safety outcomes can be improved by reducing travel speeds, but actual travel time is actually not so greatly impacted. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Well, how about, I'm thinking about San Anselmo since you guys have, you know, established this over that. Any datas on the before and after?
We haven't collected that yet. No, and that's a great question.
Just to show the impact, you know, the
So our
changes.
firm, we have not supported in any of evaluation efforts as of yet, but there is plenty of research and published literature on the topic. I displayed a couple of examples, but there are cities across the country, Denver, Portland, Boston, Seattle, Toronto, internationally, that comprehensively have studied the topic before and after speed limit reductions. And that's a very common conclusion. Improvement in safety outcomes, decrease in vehicle speeds, and really no impact on travel time.
Okay, thank you. And Member Locks?
Anybody between me?
No, Member Locks?
Okay. Thank you for your excellent presentation. I have two questions. The first one was, you had mentioned a website. What is it? And while you're looking that up. The second is, do you, I think as others have stated here at the panel, do you reassess once it's been done, or do you wait until the 7-year period, or who, or then you're called back to then do the reevaluation? You have the 30-day warning period. I'm also interested in how it's being communicated to the public. So aside from the adoption of the ordinance in your timeline, how is it going to be, you know, how are people going to know? I don't always look at the signs as I'm driving down the street. I just assume that I'm going with the flow of traffic. So, so those are the two questions. And yeah, I think.
Thank you.
Yes.
Really appreciate the questions. For one, the California Vehicle Code still does require an engineering and traffic survey to be conducted on the 7-year frequency
Okay, yes.
in order to establish legal enforcement of speed limits. So, you know, San Rafael doesn't have to conduct another engineering and traffic survey, but if they don't, every ticket that is written by the police department will get thrown out in court. So that's just the way that the
Be
legal
thrown out in
system-
court because.
because those speed limits are invalid if they don't have a recently completed engineering and traffic survey
Oh, I see. Thank you.
to establish their
Okay.
posted speed limits, right? So
Yes.
that's kind of the way that the California Vehicle Code is set up. And so Assembly Bill 43, it really does provide a lot more ability for local jurisdictions to establish speed limits. The frequency of the engineering and traffic survey is still set by the California vehicle code in order to enforce speed limits.
The website,
Yeah, the website
do we have?
is here on the screen.
Member Lux, it's in your packet.
Is it
as
in the
well.
packet?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, all right, thank you.
Great. And then also about how are we going to start to roll out the program?
Yes,
And I think
the communication.
the communication aspect,
Mhm.
that's something that we have assisted jurisdictions with in the past. And there's ways that we have to do that. We haven't talked a lot of those details yet. We'll get to that point in our project where as a project team, we'll ensure that we're taking steps to communicate and to make this known. Also maybe kind of have a way of communicating a 20-mile-an-hour zone that applies for downtown. And, there's certain messaging that can be done around that. But there's a lot of details that we
Yeah,
haven't
well,
worked out yet.
you had mentioned that the adoption, your timeline was the adoption of the ordinance. So that would be when you do your presentation to the city council. Okay, so then after it's presented and given the go, then it would be implemented. Okay,
Yep.
and so you have summer, is anticipating summer. All right. So with your presentation to us today, is it that you're asking for our support with going ahead with the project and to communicate to our various communities that this is coming down the road? Is that the
Thank
goal
you.
of your
Yeah, thank you.
presentation?
What we've asked for is for review of our presentation and for the committee to provide feedback. That is really our primary aim of tonight. The feedback that we've received from the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee has been key for us thinking through this topic.
Mhm.
And we want to make sure that we're reaching out to bodies that are going to allow us to sharpen the way that we've approached this and will approach the upcoming steps of the
Yes.
project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is there anything we've shared with you that stood out for you that was helpful?
Yeah, for sure. I think, we have on our slide an evaluation period post-implementation, but it is very helpful to really zero in on having the data and making sure that tells a story
Okay,
afterwards. I think
because I wasn't
That's
sure
very
how to
helpful.
interpret your reaction. So that part was helpful to you.
for sure. Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Chair Tokalahi, can we take a quick second to toggle interpreters?
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Chair Tokalahi. We can continue.
We'll continue. Do you have any questions? Member Ruiz?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. The survey, are you going to do in Spanish too?
Maybe translating the materials or the findings or the surveys into other languages. And like the majority, like we have a huge majority of, Latinos in San Rafael too. So I think that's the question regarding materials, surveys, informations in other languages,
Thank you.
Yeah.
access.
Great. Thank you for the question. Yes, that's something that we definitely work towards doing. And we're still in the process of updating our website, but we do try to put out outreach material in multiple languages. So that's something like we have taken note of and we'll make sure will be available.
Cool.
Yo pienso que si ustedes lo van a hacer en español, van a necesitar ayuda de diferentes organizaciones para que lo distribuyan y para que así las personas puedan llenar esa encuesta y poner sus opiniones. Para mí, como latina, es muy importante que nuestro pueblo latino participe y sea tomado en cuenta. Gracias.
I think that if you're going to translate the materials into Spanish, you're going to need help from organizations to help distribute that as well and have people fill out the surveys and give their opinion. As a Latina, for me, it's very important to have the Latino population participating in this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions? No? We good? I'm gonna open up for the public comments. See if there's any comments regarding the presentation.
Hi there, Justin Solby, live in the Dominican. Can you flip to the slide on the overlay with the San Rafael? The national trends and the California trends are helpful, but I think to Mr. DeVito's point about the data is readily available over the last 5 years or however many years you would want to go back, or 1 year or 2 year, where you could overlay, in addition to his recommendation about overlaying vehicle accidents or vehicle versus pedestrian or even vehicle versus train, to include a table metrics along with the graphic that identifies the severity, where it might have been property damage only or accident with injury or accident that involved an extrication of the individual from a vehicle, similar to vehicle versus pedestrian, where there was serious injury, no injury, or a fatality involved. And can that data, not just for the comparative purposes on the other side of this, to look at the benefit in downtrending the severity if it follows along with what you say? I mean, I think we all know that slower speeds result in less accidents and less severe accidents, but can that data overlaid against the grid support this gentleman's thought about the inclusion of second and third if the 85th percentile reasoning wasn't a sufficient driver? Could we perhaps leverage the historical precedence of accidents and their severities in that space, or is that not a part of the decision of to whether or not you're allowed to drop speed limit? I know
Thank-
that was like very
thank
quickly.
you.
Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you. Jimmy, or any of you guys on your team would like to?
I can
address the
say that again
questions?
slower if you need to write it down. The government did this to me. I speak quickly. Sorry.
Yeah, if I can respond, uh, we do have some of that data from the local road safety plan. Very comprehensive study of crash history and displayed in different ways. This is just a snippet there, and I know it's a little shrouded, but it actually does show that second and third also are high collision network segments in San Rafael.
Is that is that a sufficient driver
Unfortunately,
to
it's not
justify a
sufficient
slowdown?
to allow for a reduction in speed limit to
Okay.
20 miles an hour. But
Because it's currently posted at
it's currently posted at 25, but an engineering and traffic survey takes into account results of speed surveys that are taken in the field. And so it's the prevailing speed of traffic that still establishes the point from which you can reduce to a specific speed limit. Second and third, both, even with crash history taken into account, get down to being able to establish a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Okay. Was just curious if that
It's a
could,
great question.
if that could
Yeah.
influence, if the speed survey didn't provide the data to support it, can the historical precedence of accidents and their severity, whether it's vehicle on vehicle or vehicle versus pedestrian, be used to legitimize a slowdown on that? That's all.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from the public? How's it going, Jason?
Good. How you doing, everybody?
Good, good.
Great. Okay, let me just get this. I believe a better option is to reduce all the speed limits in the high impact areas that are above 25 miles per hour and make all those areas a universal 25 miles an hour speed limit. That way it'll be an easier transition with informing the public and the implementation, and also with the implementation of the speed limit changes. Plus, it would be a lot less confusing for drivers who will always have to remember which speed limit is what in each of the areas that get changed. I also think if the city is actually going to reduce speed limits to 20 miles per hour, the city should start with schools and residential areas. And I know a couple of you brought that up, and I think it's very important in those areas. I mean, it might be hard for the public to abide by 20 miles per hour in these, city street areas, but I believe it would be a wise decision to put those 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in schools and residential areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you for your informative presentation. I think we're all here because we care about safety and we want to increase safety in our communities. And I think this is one of those multiple perspective things. And so I would like to hear like very detailed tracking of what were the accident rates before the reduction and what are the accident rates after. I think it's also important to look at who's getting the tickets. And so I heard a lot of talk about enforcement. And so I would like to, with the reduction in accident rates, which makes us safer, I also want to make sure that we're not using this as a new tool for pretextual stops, which we talked about on Saturday. So when we know that people are going to be speeding anytime there's a reduction, they're not going to remember that people are speeding already. But if we're using that as an excuse to over-police poor people and people of color because of the kind of cars they're driving or because of who's driving the cars, I think that's an important part of safety also that I encourage, that I hope the police department will show us data on traffic stops in these particular areas to see if we're increasing inequities and disparities in policing in our community, with unfortunately being an unintended consequence of reducing accidents by lowering the speeds. Thank you.
Thank you. No other comments from the public? Okay, we're gonna close public comments. Any response from the staff?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Tokolaki. If I could say a couple quick things. One, to your question about, and Member Davidi's comment about improving traffic safety, lowering the speeds would hopefully lower the amount of traffic collisions, which would then improve traffic flow. A lot of the times traffic is caused by incidents where people are driving illegally and usually too fast. So that would improve traffic. And then I would also like to just remind the committee that this is just the AB 43 traffic presentation. If you would like to have a traffic safety brought back that would talk about how we do enforcement, we could talk about what the definition of a pretext stop is. We could talk about the statistics of more or less officers on the roadway. We would be happy to do so if you guys want to bring that as one of the topics during your work plan.
Okay. Any other feedback from the staff? No? Do you want to come back?
Do we come back to us again for feedback or we're done?
Yeah. I mean, like, if we're done with the staff feedback or response to some of these questions, some of the regarding the issues, we can move on to any comments, final comments, recommendations from the committee members.
Yeah, I'll go first. Lieutenant Eberly, not to put you on the spot, he said something about people can contest their tickets if these safety measures are not met. Is that true, that if this is not done, people don't pay their tickets if they cite this issue? If a report hasn't been done, right?
So I think your question is, can people contest this ticket and win
Yes.
their traffic if there is not a speed survey? Yes, according to the California Vehicle Code, there needs to be a speed survey, which lowering the speeds would be difficult, if not impossible, to enforce. But I also want to remind why all of you are here. We are also seeking recommendations, or in other words, feedback and ideas for how we can get the message across to all of our community. So as we go around the room tonight, and we will bring this back in February to give you a month to think about some ideas, we will pass it along to Jimmy and his team to present to the city council.
I see. Okay, I don't have any more comments. Thank you.
I'm gonna start with Member Locks on to my left. Any final comments recommendations. But hang on, before you guys come up with your comments or your recommendations, think about what, member from the community was saying. It's about safety. Think about all the elements in your neighborhood. We have kids going to school, crossroads. San Rafael have tons of cyclists now. People on the bicycles, kids, high school kids on their scooters, and all these electrical, mini motorcycle, whatever they call it. We also have a lot of motorcyclists in the city. A lot of seniors walking with walkers, So we don't have a wide enough road. I don't think we'll be able to do that, but we have a lot of different elements. So think carefully about your comments and your recommendations, because it should be very important when you take it in all these different elements in our communities. Yes, Member Locks.
I just wanted feedback or clarification. The gentleman from the community had mentioned, as you responded, that the Second Street and other streets didn't meet the 85% percentile for implementing a reduction in their speed. However, I didn't hear if the community is making a request for that, can that be implemented if overriding the community is saying, yes, we were only 82%, but we wanted to be included as part of the reduction plan? Are those recommendations being able to be taken and implemented?
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, no, the California Vehicle Code does not allow for that manner of input into speed limit establishment. The way to think, I actually very much appreciate the recommendation on second and third in general. I think it's something for us as a city to go back and think through how free flow speeds can be brought into closer compliance with the existing speed limit, which would then allow for these AB 43 provisions to reduce the speed limit further. So very valuable. Unfortunately, we still have to work within what the California Vehicle Code affords the city to be able to do. But I do take heart, because prior to 2022, cities had no say in their speed limits within their jurisdiction. And it's almost unbelievable to think about how different the world is now. This really is an exciting time for the city to be able to use these levers to reduce speed limits within the boundaries. So thank you for the input.
Chair Tokalahi, can I just I want to make a clarifying comment as you guys go down, just so you guys all understand this. To get approved by city council is going to be before the next PAC meeting. But when we bring it back, well, tonight we're going to capture all your recommendations and give that to Jimmy, and he'll give that in the presentation that he does to city council in February. But if you have, when we bring this back after it goes to city council, and you have some ideas on the next phase, as Jimmy talked about, the implementation phase and maybe community messaging, we will still capture those ideas and give them to Jimmy for the future phases.
Okay. Cool. Member Ruiz?
Yo estoy un poco confundida que no van a implementar, no van a bajar el límite de velocidad en la segunda y la tercera. Me imagino porque son las calles que sacan todo el tráfico de los pueblos a Fairfax, San Anselmo, y igual y los trae. Me imagino que por eso no. Porque en la mañana se pone y en las tardes terrible ese tráfico. Me imagino que no pueden ir a 35, me imagino que van a 15, a 20, van muy despacio, me imagino que por eso no, así entiendo que por eso no bajaron la velocidad, pero vamos a ver el resultado con las otras calles en el futuro, a ver qué es lo que sucede. Y muchas gracias por su presentación.
I imagine that speed is not reduced, won't be reduced on Second and Third Streets because those are the way people leave to Fairfax and San Anselmo and come back. In the morning and in the afternoon, the traffic is terrible. The people don't go at 35 miles an hour, they go maybe 15 to 20. So I think I understand that that's why these streets are not being considered for that. We'll see how other streets perform. And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Member Carmena?
Just thank you so much for your presentation. I certainly understand the process. I'm actually interested if it sounds like it will be, the speed limits will be changed, how the police department will work with enforcement in terms of getting the message out. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair, you got anything else? No? Member Al?
Yes, I want to have traffic and safety as a topic. It is my recommendation. I asked for it on Saturday. Unfortunately, we voted it down. I will stress again to this dais that when I'm out in the community, it is the number one thing I hear from the community when I talk about that. I'm a member of the Police Advisory and Accountability Committee. That's the only thing they want to talk about. 100% of the time when I'm talking to somebody in the community, and I think we even surveyed that, and that was the number one topic. I think it is of good value that we continue this conversation. I'm glad we're having it. It is my recommendation that we increase enforcement on 2nd and 3rd Street. It is the result of speed creep that we can't get this to fit under AB 43. With respect to our contractors, it is my recommendation we find a way to make it work. I'm concerned about when we surveyed this. Is Vivalon involved in that survey? Can we restudy that? I think there is a lot of value in at its safety. 2nd and 3rd Street is a corridor of huge accidents and terrible injuries, especially for pedestrians. I would love to see that revised. It is my recommendation to let's rework the numbers. Let's enforce, let's get some enforcement because that is the result of speed creep and why we can't even get it to work. Me personally, representing the West End, it is to Department of Public Works. You know, we talk about the Miracle Mile and the speeds that are happening there. I would really like to make sure Miracle Mile is studied and hopefully we can fit in there from Hay Street to the San Anselmo border. I really hope it is our number one goal in the West End to get it Miracle Mile down from 35 to 30 miles per hour. I would really like to make that a priority for just representing my own neighborhood. That's it for my recommendations.
I'm going to jump in again. I'm sorry, but just I think it's an appropriate time to give you an update how everything is connected on our hiring. We've starting to increase our numbers. So we just recently last month, or actually a couple months ago, we were down for 0 traffic enforcement officers. We're at 1 right now, and we plan to get 1 more, so 2 plus a sergeant for a total of 3 by March.
Thank you. Member Nguyen, you have any recommendations?
Yes. So I heard that we talk about only the downtown San Rafael on 2nd and 3rd, but can we suggest some other roads like the local roads that when I observe have a speeding, we need to implement the safeties there too. So we talk about like the canal and Bahia Way It's,
deal with.
yeah, most very often that I see, the car is speeding, even though the quiet streets, but but Highway have a school. So, I don't know if that's, will be put into the concern for the implemented.
So you wanted to expand these to other areas in the city? Yeah, and I think you mentioned this too, like the city, the plan is to start here and then eventually they'll, they'll take it to other parts of the city too. Yeah,
So before we submit to proposal to the cities, that if we include every road in Summerfield or just the certain roads, the certain like the downtown Summerfield.
I'll come back to you, Jimmy, with her questions. Yeah. Because I think she's probably, you probably do this with your presentation to the city council in a more expanded, because her concern is she wanted to see other areas of the city to have the same AB 43 implemented on those areas too.
Yes, we certainly do plan to extend the study to other areas of the city. The strategy currently is to implement in downtown first and to grow momentum around this as being a positive change, while also then evaluating other roadways in the city.
So your feedback is going to be extremely helpful when we go into the next phases. So that's what I was talking about for next month. If you have other areas that you want that we can bring back to Jimmy and his team, we'd be happy to do so. And I think it's going to be very valuable hearing from all of you.
I think she wanted to.
Yeah, I was also going to expand that. I've also noted your comment just now, and then we also have our online survey. So if anyone thinks of any other areas that they are interested in us looking into in the next phase, please submit the online survey. And thank you, Member Ruse. We'll definitely look at reaching out to our partners in the Canal neighborhood, like Voices of Canal, Canal Alliance, to make sure we get the survey out there, and then even with our community centers to make sure we work with the neighbors and families.
Cool. Thank you. Adios. Member Alvarez?
My comments would be thank you for your presentation. Also, I think it's very important to look at, as Member Nguyen said, schools, because schools, they have children walking all around. And I think it's important for us to decrease. Just to look at it for now. I also think it's important to look at what the public said, more detailed information. And yeah, that would be it.
Thank you. Member Valdez?
Yes, I think that thank you for the presentation, and the same as Marilyn, and because yeah, we need to expand this to other areas like Canal area or other places too. But that will be is my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. I think we're learning a lot. I know this is going to come back to us again. We're going to take this back to our communities, talk to our folks, talk to our local groups and stuff, and make sure that they can get access to, through your website or the survey and stuff. But thank you. This is really good new informations for the committee. Appreciate your time too. So yeah, thank you. Next on our agenda though, we're looking at our 2024 PAC annual report. I'll come back to the staff. Thank you guys. You may be excused. Sorry.
Thanks for the opportunity.
No. You guys sit there. You're not done yet. I'm just joking. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll come back to the staff regarding the 2024 PAC annual report. Do we need to take a,
I'm sorry. We're toggling the interpretation right now.
sure. Do you guys still have a copy of your annual report from last Saturday?
Is there a
You can have
copy
one.
also?
We can share this.
I can share with the.
Yeah.
Is extra? Yeah, but I read. Is extra?
I have an extra, we put 10 out there. I have an extra English if anybody wants English.
Yeah. It was also handed out on Saturday too.
Oh, yeah, no, the annual,
The annual report.
It's right.
It's in the back. Yeah. So if you don't have this one, it's all together in the package for today. It's right at the end.
Good evening, Chair Tokolai and members of the PAC. Honored to present the 2024 PAC Annual Report for your review and acceptance this evening. The report has been carefully prepared in accordance with City Council resolution and the provisions outlined in Section 1.3 of the PAC bylaws. For your refresher, if you may recall, the initial draft of the annual report was presented to the PAC in November of last year for your review. Building on valuable feedback that we received, we provided a redlined version of the draft report at the special December 4th meeting. That version included ongoing edits and revisions, ensuring that the final report would align with the committee's perspectives and priorities. The report included in your packet tonight and was sent out last week, and there's available copies out on the desk, reflects those suggestions and comments from the committee. We believe now the report will accurately reflect the collective efforts and accomplishments of the PAC over the past year. Upon your acceptance of this report, the finalized version will be submitted to the City Council in February for their formal review and consideration. Staff, myself included, really appreciate your time and energy that you've dedicated to this process. We value your insights and feedback that you've provided over the last several months. Your continued engagement and commitment to the work of the PAC is vital to all of our success. So I thank you for your time, attention, and continued support. And I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. We'll come back to the committee members, see if anybody have questions regarding the report. Member Locks, I see you ready.
Yes, I am ready. One of my main, I appreciate the, like the summary, because that helps to solidify the full document, to capture, understand the summary. Community has expressed some concerns to me via some emails that I received this evening before coming, that the language that is used is continues to express that we are recommending certain things. We, as in this panel, is recommending certain things, when in fact, we actually maybe discuss something or raise an issue. But the one in particular has to do with the SROs, where there was some discussion of individuals supporting it. And I don't know if those individuals on the panel actually have children in high schools. However, there was also recommendations that how it's presented doesn't show any of the maybe negative discussion. It only presents the positive as though we supported it as a unit. And so I think we had questions. I think some people did support it, but not in total. And so I'm trying to share that the community has concerns, particularly since there's one of the main issues was that students weren't involved in the discussion. And I know that Maryland had said there needed to be more involvement with the students as part of this recommendation. And I thought we had discussed that a couple of times. And so I'd like to understand that how that is implemented in the recommendations that we're sending forward. I don't see anything that's, I don't get the full picture by reading some of the summaries. It's not wholeheartedly reflective of what did occur. That's what I'll say. There's community, you mentioned the language. Members actively collaborated to develop a comprehensive set of recommendations. They felt that that was going overboard in what we actually did do last year. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay. Do you have any feedback to?
Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it. In reference to that topic,
Yes.
that would be found on pages 10 and 11 of the report. Specifically, in response to concerns. If you look at page 11.
I
it's-
don't have it. I need to see it.
Yeah.
Can I see for just a moment? Page 10?
I'm looking at,
No, that's not
it
page-
it begins on page 10, but page 10 and 11
Yes.
discuss those topics that you were referencing regarding youth and policing.
Yes.
And it specifically referenced Member Alvarez on her insights incorporating the needs and desires of the youth in the community, involving them in future conversations on this topic. Additionally, later on page 11, it also speaks about, in fact, yourself, Member Locks, that you voiced your desire to initiate a grassroots effort to gather input from both students and teachers and proposed collaborating with Member Alvarez on this topic.
Yes. Okay.
Member Locks, you good?
However, in the recommendations, when you summarize, you say, support the reintegration of the officers. And that really wasn't what we had said. We said we need to evaluate if we need to reintegrate. And so you're saying we're recommending that you do. And I don't think that we did. That's what I'm saying. We didn't.
So the status under youth and policing,
I'm now looking at the summary.
the annual report on page 10, the status is the recommendation is under consideration. That's the recommendation. And then we go into 2 pages of individual comment that we collected from rewatching the previous meetings. And we thought that a collective recommendation was going to be tough. So that's why we individualized everybody's comment. So everybody had their say and we included it in here so that the city council can differentiate between the collective PAC and every individual member of the PAC.
May I make a comment? My thought is, I understand what Ms. Olson has done, and thank you so much for all the effort you have put into
lot of effort,
yes, it's hard to hurt us. And I understand what Member Locks is saying, and I just have a small suggestion that on the chart, on the summary page where on October 2024, Youth and Policing, where it says support the reintegration of officers in the schools. Instead of saying this recommendation is under consideration, perhaps you could say something like this topic is under consideration. I think her objection is to the assumption that the entire board is recommending it, although I actually do, but I understand her position.
Yeah, but this particular column is what
Right.
we are recommending.
Right, I understand. Perhaps it's just a matter
Yeah.
of changing the word.
Yeah.
So I think at the end, absolutely, we could do that. So at the end of the discussion,
This.
the chair is going to call for a motion to accept it.
Mhm.
And we could, just like we do at the minutes, we could say we move to accept it with the change of changing the word recommendation on page 10 to topic.
On page 10 too. Oh, here, page 10.
Dude,
I do caution a lot of changes because this is,
Don't do it.
okay.
No. We understand that.
We just have to come up with a word that accommodates everyone.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because,
And-
I,
And I
I
think,
think
like-
it's also important not to look at the staff report when making the discussion because it is just a summary. The staff report, that staff report is not going to go to the city council. The annual report is going to go to the city council. Yes.
okay.
Then that
That's
may-
the, yes.
Then
that's
there we
the-
go.
There you go.
do,
Okay.
do we have any other questions?
Yeah. Okay. Here you go.
Do we have any other questions from other members to my right? No? Okay. If we don't have any other questions from members of the committee, I would like to open to the public for comments regarding the 2024 annual report.
I'm super confused by the statement you just made, Lieutenant Everly, about staff reports not going to city council, because I've never seen an agenda item without a staff report at city council. And so I had the same concerns that it seems disingenuous to say that members actively collaborated to develop a comprehensive set of recommendations and then to put recommendations in the staff report that a bunch of members of the public talked about last time, where it makes it look like everybody supported the reintegration, everybody wanted a drone program, everybody wanted restraining orders from countries outside of Canada enforced, people wanted an automated license plate reader program. Like, it simplifies it so much that it makes it look like this body votes on things and said all of these things. And that was the issue that we had before. So I don't think putting it in the summary and then saying it doesn't relate to the report, that doesn't make any sense. And did I understand you correctly that there will be no staff report attached to this annual? Okay,
Annual
so
report.
could you clarify?
Thank you.
If I may, this staff report won't be attached to the report. The annual report will go, as you mentioned, every single council item does, except for special presentations and things of that sort or proclamations, have a staff report attached, and we will make the correction in the staff report so that that language is no longer there and there isn't an inconsistency between the report and the annual report and the staff report.
Okay, yeah, because I really think when you can't make recommendations about, you're being told you can't make recommendations about bylaws or the name, but then it's presented here in the staff report as if you are voting and making recommendations on things. And then I guess my last question is, who is presenting this report to council? Is it the police department or is it the PAC? And if it is the PAC, who's doing that? Thank you.
If you'd like me to respond, I will be
please.
happy to. The chief and probably you, Chair Tokalahi, will be presenting with council. And then just to clarify the bylaws, the bylaws were a topic that you could have talked about. So I originally, and we went over it, I made the mistake, said that you can't talk about the bylaws. That got corrected. My error, 100%. And then it did make the list of things that you could bring back and talk about, but you elected not to talk, or it didn't.
It could be an agenda item.
It can be an agenda item, but did not make the top 7.
Any other questions, comments from the public?
Yeah.
Jason?
Well, I had to take a phone call, but it looks like you all covered the bylaw questions.
We're also on the annual report.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, you know, in the annual report, it talks about what the bylaws are and the fundamental function of the committee. And so, yeah, what I was hoping for is what I was going to say is, you know, you can make recommendations. It says it right there. You can advise the committee or the council. And so I guess it was pointed out that you can put it on an agenda item. So I don't want you to be afraid to not address issues just because it's not on your work plan. And so, you know, this is your chance to make a difference. This is your chance to question the status quo, to push back if need be. And so, you know, this is all important work, and I want you all to take it seriously because you can all make a difference, and you can make your committee as strong as it needs to be. You know, there's ways around it. If you choose to speak publicly about a certain event that happened, you know, and the city council or the police are telling you, no, you can't make a public statement, you can. You simply, you could do it as a member of the PAC, or you could just say, you know, these are my personal thoughts. There's ways to get around that. So don't be afraid to voice your opinion. And also you could also, you know, reaching out to the public is so important. And, you know, they want you to be a conduit for their concerns. So please, you know, try to have events or a meeting that's more easily accessible for the public. You know, maybe a couple of you at a time can do an event at a certain spot at a coffee house and invite the public. You know, those are great opportunities to hear the concerns of the public because we're not quite getting it here yet. And so a little more recruitment would be powerful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Do we have any other comments from the public? Nay, we're gonna close public comments. At this time, since we are already in the discussions, regarding our annual report from last year, just to be sure, like,
Oh.
is there anybody else, from the committee was last minute? I see you.
I was going to make a motion.
We can move on to the motion if there's anybody. Are we all good? Yeah. And remember, like, this is coming back too. We're still gonna do some work on it.
Chair Tokalahi,
Sorry.
the next phase will be to present to city council.
Right. Yes. And that's why I didn't want to jump into the motion yet. Because I wanted to do one last minute round to see if anybody else have anything else to say regarding the report. Because once we pass, you know, here tonight, that's it. Member Locks?
As city manager said, that if the motion is for us to accept the annual report with the recommendations. Okay, thank you, because I can't make a motion tonight.
Yes.
No, I can't tonight. Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay. Okay, now we are moving forward. Any requests for motion and second to accept the report?
Chair Takalai, I move to accept the report with the, I get correction of the word recommendation to something that's, I'm trying to, topic, thank you. To change the word recommendation to topic. And with that, I would move that we accept the report.
Motion to accept, any second?
I could clarify, Member Kamina, are you talking about on page 10 under the youth and policing status where it says this recommendation is under consideration? You want to change it to this topic is under consideration?
Yes, that's what I intended. And I think there's a concern. Is the chart going to go to the city council? which I have on.
Just confirming, I just want to clarify because there's several charts and we keep saying report, so not to be ambiguous, and I want to make sure that
I
we're
understand.
all physically and metaphorically on the same page.
I
The
have-
chart on the staff report or the charts that are within the annual report?
I am talking about there's a entitled Police Advisory Committee, January 15, item 2B, recommendation. So it's
That's a
your
staff report.
Staff report,
description.
that's
And
the
in that, there's a chart that on page 2, 3, and 4 has a column, PAAC recommendation. So it's the word recommendation that seems to be causing the issue. And I think the suggestion is to change, if we change that word from recommendation to topic, it's much less, I mean, it shows more of a consensus of what the group is feeling.
Yeah.
Does that work for you? Member
That's on the
Fox?
staff report.
So should I repeat the motion?
Yeah, so the chart that is in the staff report for the PAC is not the same staff report that will accompany the annual report when it goes to the city council. And if it puts everyone's mind at ease and everything is synonymous as far as language within the report, then we can avoid the charts. The chart was included in the staff report to kind of summarize and simplify what was in the 16-page annual report. If that answers your question, helps to clarify.
Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Can I make a suggestion for city council staff report? I hear the message, if they're going to basically get a concise report too, if we could just say in their staff report that it was kind of a mixed consensus, I think would be more equitable to say.
Yes,
And the topic is under consideration.
yes. We will say that. We will probably remove all the charts from the staff report and be synonymous with the annual report.
Yeah, I think we should be a little more neutral with that.
And actually, I don't mean to be difficult, but I don't think you can have a mixed consensus, because if you're having a consensus.
Well,
think we
yeah,
should use
that's
the
not a
word-
consent. Yeah, that,
Sorry, I don't mean, but I think maybe we shouldn't use the word consensus is what I'm saying.
We're gonna, just like I
Wordsmith
said
it.
before, and yeah, we'll wordsmith it and say that they're gonna be
there were mixed
your
opinions.
individual recommendations based on each one. So we'll wordsmith that and we'll make it clear that it came from an individual member of the PAC, not a consensus of the entire PAC.
Perfect. You should keep your job. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
There's a motion
So
on,
there's a motion on the table to accept the report with all these changes. We just need the second. Anybody second that motion? We have a motion and second to accept the annual report.
and
Thank you.
I will call the
It-
vote. Member Alm,
Approve.
Member Alvarez,
Approve.
Member Camina, Member Nguyen,
Approve.
Member Ruiz,
Approve.
Chair Tokalahi,
Approved.
and Vice Chair Davidi.
Approve.
That motion passes.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Do you,
Uh,
do you know what day at the city council is going to go?
Let's go.
Pardon. Likely it would be a meeting in February. Let me just consult with our planning document. My apologies for not having that post. Sorry, while it loads.
and you guys can also,
I promise you, we will
Yeah.
give you,
Yeah,
we'll send you an
updates.
email again
Yes.
tomorrow, and then we'll send you an email at least, if not 2 weeks, a week out.
to inform us about the date. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the tentative date would be February 18th. But we can, we do have some flexibility, but we were tentatively targeting the 18th for the presentation.
That is a holiday week.
Yes, the 17th is President's Day. The 19th is a PAC meeting, so it's going to be the day before our scheduled PAC meeting.
Thank you. Okay, staff liaison report.
Yes, I have one report. It is the complaints of 2024. So a total complaints of 2024 were 33. 2 were sustained. 23 were exonerated. 6 were unfounded, and 2 are pending. I was told that those 2 that are pending are looking like they are going to be unfounded or exonerated. They're just not complete. That's a total of 33. There was 1 complaint for bias, and there was 1 complaint for use of force. Neither of those complaints fell into the category of release per 832.7, which means that they were not sustained. And therefore, no other information than what I have given can be disclosed.
Do you have the numbers from the following year? Like 2023, maybe 2022? Just for us to see. the
Yes,
numbers?
there is probably not enough. I could get it to you by this meeting. I also on our transparency tab, we have
Oh, okay.
the 5-year complaint log. So this will go up on our 5-year complaint log. I can tell you that it is very similar. We average around 30, 35 complaints a year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay.
Just,
Yes.
I do have a staff liaison report. I did place these out on the table for the public and for members of the PAC to take as well. But the Marin County Civilian Oversight Commission is recruiting. And so they have an application period that is open from now until February 16th. And the Civilian Oversight Committee, I'm just reading from the flyer, is a vital bridge between our community and law enforcement. It is an independent group, works to ensure transparency, accountability, and equity in the sheriff's office by reviewing policies, practices, and concerns from community members like you. So I would encourage the PAC, if they're interested, or if there are any community members that they may know of that might be interested in serving on this Civilian Oversight Commission, to apply. And so this information is on the flyer, and we can also email the PAC members the flyer information so that you can have it posted in physical locations or whatever sort of social media channels. We do have it in Spanish and Vietnamese as well.
Does that information's on the city official website?
It's not on the city website. What we will probably do is we can put this in the city's newsletter snapshot. So we can post links there, as well as we can also email the information.
Cool. Thank you. Any other staff report? No. Thank you guys for the work.
I wish to comment. I have a
Yes,
question.
Member Locks.
Okay. I want to get back to the numbers that you shared, Scott. You said there were 33 complaints. 2 were sustained. 6 were what? 6 were
6 were unfounded.
unfounded. and
23 were exonerated, and
I did 22?
23.
Oh, 23. Okay, that's what I missed. 23 were exonerated. Okay. And 2 pending.
And 2 are pending. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Because my numbers didn't add up. I was like, what? Thank you.
No problem.
Mhm.
What's the difference between unfounded versus
Exonerated.
exonerated?
So exonerated is it happened and it was justifiable. So for an example, the officer was speeding with lights and sirens, and I didn't feel that that was appropriate. And we've gotten complaints like that. And then we go back and we research that officer was going to an emergency call. And so it did in fact happen, and that was exonerated. An unfounded example where we have gotten an example of, that this officer, while they were taking me into custody, punched me, kicked me, did something. We go back and watch all the body worn camera. We look for any other video surveillance. And if we could show that what that person said did not in fact happen, then it's unfounded.
Cool. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions? If not, we're gonna move on to our last agenda. Last item in our agenda is committee reports. I know we just came back from holidays, but I'm sure like some of you probably have done some work with your respective communities. Do we have any reports?
I can share something. More of a shout out to all of our first responders in California, especially the fire department, what's going on in Los Angeles. A lot of family there. Just want to thank. I know there's a lot of fire stations from around here that are being dispatched to go down to LA. Just want to thank all of our first responders. Just want to acknowledge them.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Anybody else?
I unfortunately had what the doctor officially called the crud. So I did nothing related to the committee during the holidays or nothing, period. But I do want to thank the officers who were involved in that horrendous incident on the freeway. It's just in the last several days. As I told Lieutenant Everly earlier, I actually was on that very stretch of freeway some years ago when a car was coming the other way. And it was just a horrendous event. And so this was handled so well, with and the thing that impressed me was the coordination from Sonoma and the CHP. I think it shows that you're really doing what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
Only thing I have to report from this meeting to our last meeting, I had coffee with Heidi. We discussed our annual report. Thank you for your time. It was an insightful conversation. Thank you.
anything else to report? Nay? I think that's it. Also just wanted to say thank you to members of, the communities for keep coming out. Thank you for your time, your comments, your concerns, your opinions. It's a long year. It's the beginning, and we'll make sure we'll do something this year. With that, this meeting is adjourned at 7:51. Thank you, guys.